So today we have a 2008 RZR that won't shift into low or high. Let me just show you. Okay, right now it's in park. It'll do reverse. Okay. Neutral. See? That's low. And it won't go anymore. So I'm going to show you a few things to check out, and I'll show you exactly what's going on and how to fix it, and we'll drive this sucker out of here. Let's get to it. In this video I'm going to go pretty fast paced through the disassembly of this because we have to get all the way down to the transmission to fix this issue. If you got one of these, take it off. Take your seats out. Pull this off. Pull this off. Pull these off. Pull this off. Then take this off. I already took the belt off, but go ahead and take the secondary clutch off. Then remove all these bolts. Alright, with this issue, where it's not shifting all the way, first thing you want to check into is right here. This is your shift cable. So you can watch it move. It's in park right now. Reverse, neutral, low. And it won't go into high. So, you want to run it through its motion, make sure it's not binding up. Now what we're going to do, take this off, and then we're going to run it through with the shifter and see if it's binding up. If the cable is binding up, boy, this made this job just a lot easier. But, as we can see, it's not binding up. So, right in here is some shift linkage. That's what we got to get to. We need to pull the transmission out so that we can take that apart and see what's going on. So the exhaust, the brackets, and the sway bar is in the way, so we need to get those out of here next. Airbox is in the way. Gotta go. The past 20 minutes, all I've been doing is disconnecting wires, hoses. I pulled a bracket from right here, the intake, of course, another intake tube, tip. This is your gear selector. This will tell you what gear you're in on the computer right there. It'll say park, reverse, neutral, low, and high. This guy has some little parts in here. It's best if you just leave it. I unplugged it, and I'm just going to keep the wire right here. As soon as I unbolt the transmission from the bottom, there's two bolts, two nuts that hold it onto the motor here, and also a bracket right here holding it onto the frame. That bracket, and then there's two bolts up underneath here, but as you can see, I gotta pull the skid plate. So that's the next thing to go. After I pull the skid plate, I can pull those. Then the only other thing from there is, because this transmission is hooked up to the drive line right here, and this shaft has to go out of this cover. I don't have the tool to pull the primary clutch off, so I'm going to leave it. All I got to do is just wiggle it around this. But because I got to get this out of here, and also the drive line, you have to move the transmission that way. Because I have to do that, I have to unbolt it from the rear differential, and I also have to pull the brackets off the rear differential and these, and pull the drive line so that the rear differential can move back. Then that way I can move this transmission, scoot it over, and roll it out. Alright, I think we're free. Let's go ahead and get this sucker out of here. Now I'm going to drain the oil out of this sucker. This guy right here. Here's the inside of the transmission. Okay, on the inside of this, these holes, what they have is there's a little ball bearing with a spring behind it that pushes in there, and it indexes when this thing shifts. Now, this one I had taken out, and I'll show you what you do. Take this screw all the way out. Okay, and we got the ball bearing, which rides inside here. There's actually two. There's one on this side, and there's this one on this side. Now, throw the ball bearing in there, and the spring, and then screw this down. Now, the problem that a lot of these have, a lot of people go nuts. A lot of people go nuts, and they pull this thing way past. So, I'm trying to be careful. Okay, now that's park. You can see where that little ball bearing was riding. But what happens is this plate right here gets worn out as well, and people jamming this so much, this plate wears out and it will actually turn this way, which allows enough space for that ball bearing to pop out, which makes your shifter feel very weird because that thing's not indexing right. So the cure for this, what I have done is I took this whole shaft apart, and the way you do that is you pull this little plug out, and then you can pull the shaft that goes all the way through here. Then you can pull this out, pull this bolt, and you can yank this part out after you've taken it apart. Yeah, I went ahead and welded right there. That way this plate will no longer bend this way and allow space for that little ball bearing to pop out. And what will happen is that ball bearing comes out and it goes around in here and wreaks havoc, and then you just have the spring, and sometimes the spring will pop out and it'll really feel like you had nothing in your shifter, and it just moves back and forth. But if you have just a spring riding in there, it feels really grindy and pretty crappy. So this thing is ready to go back together. We're going to go ahead and assemble and put it back into the machine and see how it does. Okay, I wanted to show you this as well. This is the part that sends the signal to your computer on your dash that says whether the transmission is in park, neutral, reverse, low, or high. So the way, if you take this off, if this comes out or it gets messed up or something, the way you set this is this part of the gear needs to be pointing towards this hole right here. So then once you get it set right there, drop it in, make sure it's meshing good, and then there's some other pieces. And this is why I say leave that guy bolted on there when you're taking it out, because there's a little tiny spring in here, and this piece. So you got to have these two pieces, and also this one has this little plunger, and there's a spring in there, both of those. So you want to, that's my suggestion, leave that guy in there while you're pulling out the transmission so that you don't get this messed up. Right now we're in park, won't go nowhere, neutral, or sorry, reverse, now neutral. Now before I had a problem even going back further than this, so there's low and high. And you can see we're in high, computer shows low, neutral, reverse, but there we go, park. So there we go. And you can see this is all smooth now, and the index is just fine. Got the RZR all put back together, and as a recap, if you have this problem where you try to put the RZR in gear, either reverse or all the way back to low and high, If you try to move that gear shifter and that gear shifter feels off, if it feels loose, like there's nothing there at all, or if it feels grinding, more than likely that's your issue, is right there where I showed you that weld needs to be. I hope this helped, and I hope it lets you know what you're getting yourself into if you have this problem, and what goes into it to get it fixed. So hopefully I see you on trail. If you liked this content and thought it was helpful, we'd appreciate a like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Hopefully see you out on the trail.